Good afternoon, friends, family, loved ones, contributors, distractors. This is Kevin Lewis on the Blueprint. And this week's show is called Moonlight Goals. And hopefully, I will get some of those that follow the Blueprint able to follow me this week. I had to circumnavigate some things to be able to broadcast from my social media page. So hopefully, I'll be able to get some viewership on here and see if people that are able to follow up, they have to go a different route to check me out. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead with the show. The show must go on. Moonlight Goals, and this show is basically talking about using a metaphor for the metaphor of the moon in relations to our goals, using that connection as a metaphor. Two things that seemingly totally different, but as a in a metaphorical sense, I want to have this conversation, this dissertation, or this conversation with y'all about looking at the goal and using the moon as a example of how we should perceive and see our goals, and how I think we have been perceiving our goals and losing sight of our goals. And I'm going to use the moon as a metaphor for that. So with the moon is a constant thing. The moon is a constant. The moon has been around since the beginning of mankind. And we as men, or anyone that has ever existed on this planet, has gazed upon the night sky and seen the moon in its different phases. We in any animal or insect, everything that has ever existed on this planet has gazed upon the same moon, you know, basically the same physical moon that we are looking at today. It has not changed. Basically it has not changed. It is the exact same moon that the most ancient of ancestors on the African continent has gazed upon. Every animal that has existed in the night sky, it has seen the moon. And that same moon is the same moon that we gaze upon today. I don't care if you're talking about Imhotep, Cleopatra, Napoleon, they have all gazed upon the same moon. Our ancestors in this country that were enslaved in this country, they gazed upon the same moon that we have gazed upon today, or will gaze upon tomorrow night or tonight. That has been unchanging. And sometimes the only thing that has changed about the moon is its appearance to us. And that is something that is constantly changing, its appearance, how we see it. And that's due to the perspective that we are looking at, the perspective of where the sun is at, and where what season, what time of the year, or what day of the month it is. And sometimes it goes unrecognized. We don't see the moon. I mean, we see it and we don't really pay it any attention because it's the same moon there no matter what. And many of the philosophers that I follow, they always speak of using everything around you, and they used everything around them as a guide or a sign for ponderance, to think about, to reflect upon. And some of those philosophers that I speak of is Rumi, the Islamic philosopher and poet. Um, Lao Tzu. Many times y'all will hear me on this platform talk about Lao Tzu and the Tai Chi Ching, which is the way of life. And what the Tai Chi Ching was is he was a great philosopher, and he came upon this village that he was going to stay at, and the guard of the village asked him to write down what he observed during his stay. And this became the way of life, is the Tao Te Ching. And not what Lao Tzu was doing was recognizing everything around him, speaking about how he was visualizing um, in a philosophical form everything around him and how it relates to life. Another one that I read a lot about is Aristotle, a student of Plato. um, the lineage of Socrates. And Aristotle gave us the mimesis, imitation, and how the things we create are imitations. We're not actually creating those things. They're imitations of things that are already there. What is naturally around us, imitation of life, imitation of human, of what we see on an everyday basis is the things that we create with our art. And I submit that mankind has not created basically anything on its own, not in the root form. Mankind always observed nature as a guidance of creation or thought and how things work. And I give you examples: the spider web. This is how we came up with um, the ideology or the creation of nets, using fishermen nets or even dry land nets to capture things, to capture animals or whatever. We gazed upon the spider using his web to capture things that flew, and he could not capture those things without using a net, which was his web. And also that spider web is how, from my understanding, that they came up with the concept of the bulletproof vest. How did this small creature create something so strong that things get caught in? It's 1,000 times stronger than it should be. And this was the philosophy that they used to come up with a bulletproof vest, intertwining the fibers in the way that the spider web is made. And the inspiration for flight comes from the observance of birds and insects that took flight, and aerodynamics. How do they fly? How can we become um, airborne like they are? And like a termite mine, observing the termite mounds and how they build these high structures that that go into the sky. As far as they're concerned, they're thousands of times higher than them. And this is how we understand how we can create buildings with chambers or rooms inside of them. Leaves floating on the water, on the streams after it rained, and they say, okay, maybe we can float on water. We could use these things. How are they? The buoyancy of things floating, leaves or sticks or twigs floating on water. And this is the beginning of our creation of boats and then becoming ships and things like that, understanding buoyancy and things like this. We have always observed nature to create what we needed in life. Nature has always influenced us in our ingenuity. And sometimes we must use nature to observe or to teach ourselves what it is that we are lacking and what we need to do and how we need to go about doing it. And like I said, the moon is a constant. It is, and it's a metaphor for goals that we need to change. And this is just coming strictly from me. And only changes in our perspectives. That's the only way the moon changes. How we see it, how the light is shown on the moon. The moon is still a full object. And sometimes we see it in different phases because the light that is shine on it from the sun. And sometimes it's a full moon, it's a crescent moon, it's a first quarter moon, a third quarter moon, or whatever. We always see it in phases. And this is how I'm submitting to you that we see our goals in phases. And if you take the dates on the calendar and you use those, because the moon constantly changes every day of the month. And if you take each day of the month and you say, well, this is a segment of our time, whether you want to isolate it to just Black America, Blacks in the continental USA, our time here. And at one time, we saw the full moon as a perspective of our goals as a whole. we saw, and I'm going to get into what those goals should be, some of the things our goals should entail. But what happens is when you have a destination that you want to reach, you have a goal to reach that destination. And at one point, we had a destination that we were all seeking to reach, and we had goals that it was going to take, or we should have had goals that it was going to take to reach that destination. And if you take each day of the month from it going from a phone, and the next day it's not as full, as time starts to transpire with the moon and the sun, it's going to be changing its phases. Then it's not going to be such a full moon. The first couple of days, our first couple of decades or centuries or whatever, we're going to have full set of goals that we want and we want to achieve. But as time has gone by, some of the moon has been in the darkness to us, and some of our goals have been in the darkness to us to achieve. And we were not able to achieve or perceive those goals like as we should. We thought that we had made progress because an outside entity was telling us, was giving us the progress that we were making. And the progress that we were making wasn't really ours and our destination. So every segment of the moon and every phase that we go to, we can say this is a time um, that we have been in this country. If we just isolate it to this country, at one time we had a full set of goals that we were eyeing. We want our freedom, we want our independence, we wanted self determination, and all these things that I'm going to talk about. But as time has gone on and we have been granted a matriculation of freedoms, then those goals that we should have had on the table for ourselves has seemed, and we're only focusing on or seeing the goals that we think we need at that time. And in actuality, those goals, the full set of goals should have never changed. We should always have had those goals in mind. And I know some people say, well, back in the civil rights movement, we were fighting for this. In the Black Power movement, we were fighting for that. And in the 70s, it seemed like we just dropped the ball as a people somewhere along the way. And this is what I'm talking about. We should never drop the ball. We felt as if we gained certain freedoms or were given certain freedoms. And then we lost sight of the goals, the whole totality of what we need to do as a people to be independent and to be self sufficient. And then we find ourselves having things stripped from us. And we find ourselves in a predicament where we don't have the power that we think we should have or anyone should have as a people. And this is because we have gone through phases of looking at our goals and thinking that certain things were in the dark and we didn't need those things. And at some point, and sometimes we think that we are reaching our goals and reaching the goals, or we have deviated from a path of a people that should have goals that they should want to reach. And some of these things we can't see because we're looking at a crescent moon. We're almost, most of the goals that we should have been reaching now, they're in the dark as time has gone by. And to me, this is an analogy of how we should see our goals as dealing with each other, not thinking about the outside. I don't want to say not thinking about it, but not worrying about relying on the outside of our community as a whole. And I'm talking about a worldwide community, a nationwide community. We should be thinking about within ourselves, what do we need to do to achieve the goals that we need or that we want or the things that we desire or we should be desiring, because I think that we as a people have lost sight of being independent And when I'm saying, I'm not talking about nationalism, separation, and things like this. We can operate within the system and amongst others, just as you do as a family, but your family have a certain name, and you have people that you identify as family members and those that you identify as being outside of the family, but you still go about society uh, working with people that's not within your family. This is how we must be as a people, as far as I'm concerned. We have to look at things as a family unit and try to reach our goals and our destination. And we must have a unified type goal and destination as a people. And if we don't do that, as far as I'm concerned, then we're going to continue to fight the same battles. And I read something that Stokely Carmichael said, that he said that we basically were not asking for integration when he's talking about the Black Power movement. He was talking about empowering ourselves. Instead of it, you're trying to fit in with someone else that don't want you to fit in with them. And this is shown throughout the years to be the case, because we're still fighting and they're still showing us that they don't want us, really, they don't want to be us to be part of what they're doing. They don't want us part of their communities. They don't even want to see our museums and the things that we think that we have gained over the decades. And if they have a chance, they don't have to visit our museums or anything. Yet they still want to take those things away. As soon as someone gets in the government that is willing to stand up for their beliefs and have the same beliefs and mindset that they have, and that person wants to go and rip apart anything that has anything to do with Black history and in the government situations, recognition and whatnot, they have no problem tearing that apart. I don't care about any kind of I'm going to say, like, Jewish memorials or Hispanic, you know, historical recognition, or things that's recognizing their culture or their the history that they have made, their accomplishments, or any Chinese. I have no problem with that existing. And if I don't want to visit it or acknowledge it, I don't have to. But they're going as far as to tear those things down. They don't even want those things to exist. And this tells you a lot about the situation and of where we're at and who we're dealing with outside of our family. So I'm saying that we need to close ranks and start thinking inside of the family. You're fighting people or trying to change minds of people whose minds are not going to change, whose mind has not changed or has reverted back to a time that that was a negative situation for us, all out negative. It's a negative situation for us now, but they are reverting back to a time that we were fighting against, and we had that fight a long time ago, which tells you that we are fighting an uphill battle, and we're going to push that ball up to a point, and at any time it could roll back down, and we'll be right back trying to re-go our steps, or push ourselves back to where we were already at, and we should have been going forward, but now we're going backwards because we don't have that type of control over our destinies. So therefore, we must set goals for ourselves and as people. And these goals that I'm speaking of, they're self-determination. They would encompass self-determination. Self-determination is being able to govern ourselves and form our own allegiances with other groups or within our own community and control our lives. That's basically what self-determination is. We want to be in control of our own lives, to where someone outside of us is not controlling or having that much of a control over our lives everyday basis. And they do. And we should have another uh, thing on those goals. Another item should be self-manifestation. And that's the ability to realize our goals and our desires by our own means, and those things works hand in hand. If you have self manifestation, you're going to create self determination. You're going to be able to govern yourselves in a way, and it doesn't matter what's legal outside in the system. I'm not saying doing things illegally, but you can go further in saying this is not what we do amongst ourselves. Just like you could say in our family, this is not what we do in our family. You know, you have a set of guidelines and things that you do, and we need to have that in our own communities and amongst our own people, to have our own alliances with our communities and to be able to have stability within our communities and have self manifestation, creating and the ability to realize our own desires and our goals, and say our desires and goals may not be the same as this country. Our desires and goals may not be the same as whatever party is ruling this nation at the time. They may be saying it's okay and it's legal to do this and legal to do that. And in our community, we may not hold those same standards and say, no, this is not acceptable within our community. But for that to happen, you have to have power within your community. And you also, a goal should be having a state of independence. And with a state of independence is the ability to provide for ourselves. Even if providing for ourselves is a way of thinking in our own mindset, we have to break away from that which is detrimental to our people. Some of the things and the characteristics that we have exuded in our community are characteristics that we have been imprinted upon us by this government and by the media and the things how we see ourselves. You know, we're not independent of anything because they are able to imprint upon us anything that they want at any time, because we're looking at their TV shows. So they're telling us or showing our kids how to look at themselves. They're showing us how to look at ourselves. They're telling us all the bad things that we are doing, and they are erasing any good thing or not disclosing any of the good things that we do. And therefore, they're creating a negative mindset about ourselves. And if we have a state of independence, that's the ability to provide for ourselves. That's food, clothing, and shelter, economics, and education, and any kind of resource that we may need. Not saying that we have to close ranks and say, I don't need it from you. We can go to their stores and their markets and whatever, but at push come to shove, and when you have your own, you're not relying on them. That means that they could cut off anything that they want from you and you're unable to survive. And it should never be like that. We should be independent. And if you have a child or anybody that's independent, or they can be part of the group, and they can be not part of the group if they needed to, or if they saw fit. And this is what we need to do. We need to say, well, you know what? A lot of us talk about boycotts or what's happening. And the thing is, we're helpless when it comes to doing a lot of things because we don't have anything of our own that we can revert to or go to hurt them or to hurt anyone else outside of us, because we are a people that are totally dependent on others because we can't provide anything for ourselves. And these goals that I'm talking about has existed since we've been on this country, in this country after slavery. When we were slaves, we had just things were dreams. We had nothing that we could rely on upon ourselves. Once we got our independence, we had a point where we were building our own and having our own in the towns that we had them in, because everything was segregated and we was forced to do it. But once they opened the floodgates, or once they burned down what we had, and then made us more dependent on theirs, and then they opened the floodgates because we were fighting for equality and to get rid of segregation. And once segregation supposedly ended, then we had nothing of our own and we were totally dependent on them. Just as when we were slaves, everything we wanted was dependent on the slave masters and the slave owners. They gave us the food, they gave us the clothing, they built the shelter for us. Everything we needed came from them. Our names, everything we had came from them. We have slowly started to gain freedoms. We have lost sight of goals that we should have had that would make us more independent. We should have a state of independency. And that's education, economics. When anytime you're talking about the unemployment rate in this country, it is controlled, especially in the black neighborhood, it is controlled by outsiders. We are not producing our own jobs. So we have no goals. If anyone goes into the community and say, "Well, what is it that we are fighting for? We're striving for?" Most of the time, 90% of the time, we're going to be talking about fighting to get someone out of office and fighting things that's external to our own abilities, or what we need to have as our abilities, what we need to have amongst ourselves. And part of that issue is when we look at our goals, we're looking at a quarter moon. We're looking at well, our goals are limited now as far as our goals for ourselves. Another goal that we should have is the ability to protect ourselves and protect our own interests, protect our own communities. And when I'm talking about protect our own communities and resources, I mean being able to protect our kids from the outside influences that's detrimental to our community and detrimental to their mindset about themselves. We can't do that if we're sending them to sending our kids to their schools. They're controlling their education. We can't do that if anytime we turn on the TV or anything like that, they're looking at the media that is influencing their minds. We don't have our own media that injects a positive narrative on our own people and our own community. We can't go in there and say turn it to channel blah 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 because we know that that's ours and that's something that we created for us. That's nurturing to our kids. We can't do that. We have no way of protecting anything in our community. And it's something that in philosophy they call reverse thinking. And in reverse thinking is what when you start from the desired destination and then you calculate or plot out goals on what it takes to get to this destination. This is reverse thinking. Normally in forward thinking, you start building towards something. Reverse thinking is you come up with something that you want and you go into how what is it going to take every avenue to get those to reach that destination or those desires or those goals. And when you don't protect your own communities, when you don't see that, you can't you're searching for ways to do those type of things, or you're being reactive instead of proactive. If you come up with self-determination and self-manifestation and independence, you're fighting those things going forward. But if you come up with uh, a goal or what you see as a destination, if you want a place where our kids can learn about themselves, about their own history, about who they are, then that tells you you have to create your own schools where you're teaching your own communities about themselves because they are not going to do it. They haven't done it. In fact, they're going backwards now. They're tearing away anything positive that about our history or the truth about our history here. So with reverse thinking in a philosophical way, you think about what it is that you want. What's the ideal situation that you want to create or you think that we need to have? And what is it going to take for us to get there? And you start going backwards. It's a reverse way of thinking. You go from the end and then you start going from the end, coming up until where you're at now, until you get to the point is this is what we need to do to achieve these type of goals or to create this um, situation that we desire for ourselves. And I'm not, and I just gave the schooling thing or the kids, but for our kids are the fruit, out of our loins. They're our future. We should be preserving our future. We should be doing everything we can to preserve our future. And anything that is detrimental to them should be detrimental to our goals. And in a botanical way, this is something I got from Rumi, one of the philosophers that I was that I aforementioned. Rumi was talking about how trees produce fruit, and in a botanical way, that's correct. That's how we see things. Trees produce fruit, fruit produce seeds, seeds produce more trees. But if we just look at it, it's a cycle. And if we just look at it, yeah, trees produce fruit. We produce offspring. Um, in a philosophical way or a philosophical aspect, there's a situation or there are situations where the fruit produce the trees. And this seems like this going counterintuitive of how we think about uh, plants, how they operate. You have a tree and a tree produce the fruit. That's the purpose. But in a psychological way, a philosophical way, I'm sorry, philosophical way, if you're taking the tree out of nature, out of the forest or wherever it's growing wildly, out of the wild confines, and if I in my own yard wanted tangerine trees, the reason that I want a tangerine tree is because of the fruit. So in essence, it is the fruit that is causing me to go out and get a seedling tree and plant it in my backyard and fertilize it and water it because it is the fruit is the goal and the desire. So there's the goal and the desire that is creating the circumstances that I am making this tree exist and where it exists at. Just as in a natural form or for mankind, if we were in our own uh, nation, on our own continent, the natural course of things is for us to create our own destiny, and to do that is which is ripe for our kids and our fruit of our loins. When that situation is not existing and someone takes that, I don't have the fruit tree that I want in my yard. It doesn't exist. But because of the fruit, I'm going to get what it takes to get the fruit that I desire. In a mindset, we're thinking about the fruit and we're doing everything that it's going to take for me to be able to go in my yard and pluck the fruit from a tree that doesn't exist. Therefore, the fruit in the concept of my thinking is creating the circumstances for the tree to exist where it exists. And I hope I'm making sense with that. Therefore, the things that we want for our kids, the fruit that we want to bear in our communities, we have to create because those things are not the circumstances are not creating the fruit that we want to bear or we want to be bared in our communities. They're there's damaged fruit. And that's because it's not a natural process to do it. But we must say, this is the fruit that we want to bear. I envision being able to have these fruit in our communities. Therefore, you got to go about creating the circumstances that those fruit can be in the fruit that we want can be in our communities. This is what I'm saying. And therefore, to do that, you must have goals and we must recognize the goals. The moon is still the moon, no matter how much of the moon we see, how much of a name we give it, the crescent moon and all these things. That is just the light that is shining on the moon. And that is the light that we have in our mind about our goals. It gets smaller and smaller, and our goals are starting to disappear. And we're not seeing the big picture that we can create and that we can manifestate and that we can determine and what we must protect once we come up. or maybe the protection must be there first before you start creating the things that you want to create. Because if you start creating something and you can't protect it, if I plant the seed of a tree and I don't have any type of gate around it, and animals are able to come in there and eat the tree as a seedling and things like that, then it's destroying the goal that I have for the fruit that I want that tree to bear. I'm not able to take care of it if I don't have the water to nurture the tree that I tried to plant in my yard. That's never going to bear fruit if I'm not able to nurture it, to water it, to fertilize the soil thereof. Then it's never going to come to fruition. So we have to see the goals, no matter what the nation is shining on our goals to make us think that we only have to fight for this, or we have to only look at certain things. Those goals should never have changed, and they should never change. The moon is always going to be the moon, no matter how much of it that you see. It's always going to be in totality that object in the sky, and it's not going to shine its own light. The moonlight is a reflection off of the sunlight. The moon doesn't emit its own light. Our goals are not going to emit itself. We have to see the goals that we need within ourselves as in totality to reach forth and go forth in that effort to reach those goals. And this is what I came to submit to y'all. Um, I don't know how this is broadcasted on my other page. I see a couple of y'all showed up. I appreciate LaDalia for showing up, and Sakina, walaikum assalam, sister. I appreciate y'all showing up. So this is what I wanted to talk about. I wanted to use something in nature to um, influence or to be an influence, because that object is going to be there 100 years from now. If this world lasts 100 more years, our kids are going to see that same moon. But if we create that atmosphere, as to say, well, as a metaphor, the moon is as our goals, and that's our goals. Don't let the light that people shine on the moon influence how your perspective is on our goals. Our goals should be what they are, no matter what progress we think we make. And because the progress that we are making is given to us, and we can't get comfortable for what is given to us, because it can always be taken away at any time, because it is not within our power. And so we must protect our own goals. We must protect our own fruit. We must protect our own desires. And everything that we begin to create, we have to be able to protect. And this should be the ideology. This is what I'm talking about. And I appreciate everyone that showed up, and anyone that shows up to this broadcast. And I just wanted to use the analogy of how we see the moon and our perspective on the moon, and to think about that's how we see our goals. At sometimes we don't think about all the things that our ancestors have been through to get what we have, and the luxuries, and fight for the luxuries that we have gained. And that being the case, we believe that we are in a better place than we ought to be in. We are in a better we were before, but we should never been in a place anyway where we don't have power. And I'm not talking about being victims of these hate crimes and things like this. Not just in that aspect. I'm talking about us manifesting our own destiny, and having that self-determination to do that, and create a state of independence, which should be everyone's goal. That should be even your children. If you look at yourself, within yourself and your family, the goal of your children should be not to be dependent upon their parents for the rest of their lives. That is not progress. Progress is when, no matter how well they grow up and how good it is at home, they should be able to go out and be independent. And then you could say that I have succeeded in raising my kids in a way that they are adults in themselves. They should be greater than what we are. That should be the natural course of things. And if that is not the case, if your kids are forever dependent on you, then it is something that is falling apart in the process. We are not, just because we figure that we are in a better place, those rights that we have that we say we fought for, they were not ours anyway. And it's not, I'm not knocking fighting for your rights, your civil rights, your human rights, or whatever, but we should not be in a predicament where others are determining the rights that we should have as a people. We should not be in a place where others are determining the education that we have or how we look upon each other. All of the things that are negative in our community have been imprinted upon us and purposely imprinted upon us to feel and think that way, to cripple us as a people. And sometimes we have gained things and think that our goals needed to change. And that's what I wanted to get at. We should always have the goals em- embedded in our minds, and we should pass those goals on to our kids. And no matter what happens externally that others are granting us or doing, we should not lose sight of those goals. I appreciate everyone that showed up. Just Kevin Lewis on the Blueprint. I'm sorry it's a short show, but you know, I posted on my page. I'm blocked from going any other venue, so I was fighting that most of the afternoon. Peace. Hopefully, I have a better show for y'all next week.